Welcome back, 3D students. In this video, I'm going to show you how to texture our castle components that we've made so far. Before we get started, I want you to notice that we basically have three sort of shapes here. This wall and this tower and this roof are basically boxes. This box is tapered at the end. This box is long and thin and has some more boxes on top of it, but these are basically box forms. These towers here are basically cylindrical forms, as are these cone shapes that we have here. So we're going to use that concept when we begin to texture our objects. So we've already used the material editor in a couple of our other previous projects, so let's go ahead and bring that up by pushing M on your keyboard. And we're going to use a different kind of material this time. We're going to use a PBR material. And I'm going to use a metal roughness material. So it's right here. Just click it and drag it out into the slate area. And you'll see that this is a much simpler material than some of the other ones we've been working with. Now, if you look at this little text here, this tells you that this is implemented as a scripted wrapper to the physical material. So what this is just basically a simplified control of the physical material. So it's basically the same thing. It's just more like what we would see when we import into Unreal Engine or other programs. The first thing we need to do is take our scripted material and apply it to one of our objects. Let's start with the wall. And this is what we're going to get. It also says to implement high quality, so let's go up to our lighting menu here in the viewport and change that to high quality. So the next thing we're going to need are some textures. I went ahead and downloaded some textures from Polyhaven. I went in and I searched rock wall, and I believe I downloaded this one. I'll make this one available for you on the D drive of your computers, but I'm going to try this one as well. I like the way this one looks. So to get a material from Polyhaven, you simply click on the material you'd like, and it's going to download some images for you to use to connect up to your material in 3D Max. So I always like to change this to 2K. We don't need very high resolution. We need to change this to zip, and then in here we need to make sure we get the AO, which stands for ambient occlusion. We need to get the diffuse. We need to get displacement, and just check JPEG for all of these. We need one normal map. Just check the JPEG for normal GL. And we need the roughness map. Once you've done that, you can click download. And it's going to ask you where you want to put this. I'm just going to put it in my downloads folder. And when it's done, it's going to pop this up. I'm going to click this folder, and that will take me to where it is, and here it is right here. Then we have to extract it, so I'm going to double click that zipped folder. I'm going to double click the textures folder, and we need to take these images and put them somewhere else besides where they are. So to do that, I'm going to hit Control N to open up a new Explorer window. I'm going to navigate to my Castle Project folder, which happens to be on my external hard drive in a folder called Tutorial Videos, inside a folder called 3D Max, inside another folder called Castle, which is where I'm keeping the videos for this project, and I created a 3D Max project folder inside there called Castle Project. Yours should be on your 3D MA folder. So I'm going to double click my Castle Project folder. I'm going to open up Scene Assets, and then I'm going to open up Images, and this is where we need to put our textures. So I'm going to select all of these and drag them into that Scene Assets Images folder. So what I did was I just moved them from the zipped folder into my 3D Max project folder, and then I'm going to close this window and leave this one open, the one that has the Scene Assets images. Now that I've extracted these, I can select them all and drop them into my material editor and close this window. And now all we need to do is connect them up. Connect this one to the base color node. This one is the roughness, so we connect that to the roughness. Going to take this one and connect it to the normal, and see we don't have to use the normal bump translator. And this one here is the ambient occlusion. You can see it says AO right here under its file name, so this one needs to go to the AO node. And we should have one more in here for the displacement. Let's see if we can find that one. There it is. And this one is indeed the displacement, and it goes to the displacement node. Now this PBR material wrapper, as we said, just more closely matches up the bitmaps that you download when you download a material. That's one reason I like it. So let's now close the material editor for a second and see what we got. Now here's our rock wall. You can see that the material is not working very well. Let's turn off high quality for just a minute so we can just see it without all that lighting. And you can see that some parts of it are messed up. Now the parts that are messed up are the parts that are extruded new geometry. These faces, and all that, and this front, they need to be mapped properly. So what we're going to do is add what's called a UVW map modifier to this box. So with the box selected, come to the modifier list, click it, and find UVW map. They're alphabetical. And then we need a different type of projection than is on here by default. What is on here by default is planar. And we said this was a box, so it needs to be a box. And you can see that immediately fixes it, sort of. Now if we open up the material editor, you can see that these maps are square. So our map needs to be square. If you look at this map gizmo now, you can see that it is not square. It's not a cube. It needs to be a cube. Here is the length, the width, and the height of it. So I'm going to select maybe 50 by 50 by 50 and see what that does. I'm going to go 50, hit tab, 50, tab, 50. And that is pretty good. Now if I want my texture to be smaller, then I'm going to work with U and V tiling. I can repeat it more often, but if I do, I need to make sure that these two numbers here are roughly the same, or I'll distort it again. If you want it to be bigger, then you make that less than 1. But again, they have to be similar or you'll distort it again. Now, it looks a little weird, so let's open up the material editor and look at the material settings. And it says here that metalness is 0. That's fine, but roughness is 0. We want roughness to be 1 because it's rock. Once we change the roughness to 1, we get rid of that sort of shininess that was happening with it. Now that takes care of the wall, and we can very quickly do these two other cubicle or square things. And I'm going to use this map that I already created for the wall. I'm going to right click and copy it. So I want you to do that. And then let's apply the material to these other two, if you have them, square things. I mean, you don't have to follow along with me completely on this. And then what I'm going to do to fix the mapping is I'm going to select one of them, and I'm going to right click and paste that wall map on it. I'm going to do that for this one as well. And you can see that that sort of matches up the wall. But I think it needs to be bigger. Here I certainly need to adjust the tiling. So I'm going to make that a little bigger. And I think that probably looks pretty good. So you can very quickly apply the map to other objects in your scene, but you might have to adjust it just a little bit. So when we come back in the next video, we're going to do these towers, and maybe we'll get to some of these roof objects as well. And I'll see you then.